Welcome back, Truth Seeker. It is November 2nd, 2019. One of the top stories this evening is the death of the horse at the Breeders' Cup, the 36th Breeders' Cup this year hosted in Arcadia, California. And coming into the race, something we've been talking about is what are the odds that 36 horses have died on this track this year prior to the 36th Breeders' Cup? And the 36th horse had just died days before the tournament occurred. So we're going to talk about the death of Mongolian Groom. On Patreon, there was something I talked about in regards to the owner of this horse, how he was the one owner that had a gematria connection through his name to the horse that just died before the race was run, which was a horse named Bye Bye Beautiful. So we'll get to this and we'll talk about the winning horse, what's interesting about Irad Ortiz Jr., the winning jockey, in light of the death of the horse as well. And besides the Breeders' Cup, well, there's a few other Breeders' Cup stories we'll hit, including the horse that was named after Donald Trump's typo on his tweet. I told people to keep an eye on this being a winning horse. We've been talking about sports riddles connected with Donald Trump and all the world of sports since he took office. Pay attention to presidents and what happens in sports. You know, Obama comes from Chicago, and all of a sudden the Chicago Blackhawks start winning every championship. These type of things. Anyway, today is the anniversary of the Balfour Declaration, which persuaded the United States of America to fight against Germany instead of for Germany in World War I. It's November 2nd. We'll talk about why that matters, it being the anniversary of the Balfour Declaration, and why you're getting this story today. German city declares a Nazi emergency, and that city happens to be Dresden, the first city in the world to be bombed with experimental napalm. At the end of the war, the U.S. and British Air Forces napalmed the refugee camp for World War II when the war was over. They killed all the people who tried to stay out of the war. And their gift for staying out of the war was being napalmed by the victors at the end. Kind of like how we dropped the big bombs on Japan, at least so the history books say, on 8/6/86. Also, according to the history books, needless. See, my camera froze again. We'll talk about this Greta Thunberg who's back in the news. Got to talk about the hiring of Carlos Beltran by the New York Mets on November 1st. Reminding of how the Mets were in the 111th World Series and New York equals 111, and it ended on November 1st. Matt Harvey got pulled after his 111th pitch. Talk about the second Halloween shooting that made the news. We talked about one. The second one ended up making the news as well. Got to talk about the death of Ron Fairley. He was a former Montreal Expo. He died the day of Game 7, won by the Washington Nationals, who are the old Montreal Expos team. And talk about Beto O'Rourke ending his presidential campaign. And again, revisit Donald Trump having the celebration for the 115th World Series at 1:15 p.m. But here we go. With regards to the Breeders' Cup, this was the 36th edition. The 2019 Breeders' Cup was the 36th edition, and just at the end of October, this was a headline: 36th horse dies at famed Santa Anita Park as it prepares to host Breeders' Cup. And out of Arcadia, California, that's where the track is, another horse has died at the famed Santa Anita Park track, the 36th horse to die at the track since late December. And a sentence should be written there like, what are the odds right before the 36th Breeders' Cup? But the media doesn't do that to you. But if you pay attention, the numbers the media reports, if you look behind those numbers, you usually find out there's something greater there. So the horse was named Bye Bye Beautiful, and that's what's important. If you're new here, we talk about gematria, the practice of coding numbers into words. 4 ciphers you really want to know: the alphabetic order with the rules of numerology, the reverse alphabetic order with the rules of numerology. And I went through all the horses, trainers, and jockeys in the race, and the only horse trainer or jockey that had a connection to this number right here, 244, was the owner of the horse that died today. And we talked about this before the race was even run. So then you watch and you see his horse dies, and you're like, And Irad Ortiz Jr., the winning jockey today, his birthday is August 11th, special date that many things have been measured from this year. The number 118 has a history of winning at this track in Arcadia, California, which equals 118. And we pointed out that the horse Vino Rosso, which was one of the favorites, I think it was the second most favored horse to win. The favorite horse finished in second place. So these were the top two horses finished in the top two spots. But Vino Rosso, the name of this horse, look at how it overlaps with Santa Anita Park and the four base ciphers. 146, 47, 97, 97. And with regards to 52, California equals 52, and today had 52 date numerology. So this horse was well named for the location and for the date. And the Ortiz brothers, there's two brothers that are jockeys. They win a whole lot. They might be the winningest jockeys in the sport right now. But anyway, this horse was a favorite. But August 11th, remember, that's a very interesting date, the 223rd day of the year, 118, a number connected to death. So this winning jockey from, where did I put it at? From his August 11th birthday, let me go back. There it is. From his birthday to the event was 83 days. And what do we know about the number 83? The word murder equals 83. You know, the song Murder by Numbers came out in 83. 83, 118. These numbers so often showing up around death. So it was 83 days after his birthday, or if you count the span of days, you could also say it was his 84th day of his age, 2 months and 23 days after the 223rd day of the year. But notice the 12 weeks as well. The horse that died was the 37th horse, which is the 12th prime. So think of it as an interconnected web of rituals between these horses and these trainers and the way they figure it all out, the rigging. 37 is the 12th prime number. So many years back, we said to look for the Triple Crown winner, American Pharoah, before a race was run because it had been 37 years since a Triple Crown had happened. 37 is the 12th prime, and American Pharoah became the 12th Triple Crown winner. So you get the 37th horse that dies in this race, where this jockey, who was starting his 12th week of his age, he wins. And anyway, it's just the other thing that's weird is if you follow my work, you know about how we always talk about dates that have 44 and 64 numerology, fateful events, celebrity deaths on those dates constantly, because the word kill equals 44 and 64. The jockey that was on the horse that died, his name was 44 and 64. So anyway, what are the odds? And it's funny, this post I put up last night, and I made sure that people on my Patreon saw it. That's an advantage of being on Patreon too, is if I make important posts, I'll notify people there to check this out. But I told people to keep an eye on this horse. People who follow my work, we've been talking about all the riddles synced up with sports and the president. And one of the horses in one of the races today, it was named after a Donald Trump typo in a tweet. And that name equaled 127, like Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, big number in Washington, D.C., big number, period. And something that I noticed is from the day of the typo, which was May 31st, 2017, that's the 151st day of the year, which is the 36th prime. This was the 36th Breeders' Cup. From that typo, supposed typo, to this race was 126 weeks and 3 days, which means, if you're counting, that means you're in the 127th week since the tweet, because you've already passed 126, and now you're counting the 127th week since the tweet. And I thought, how interesting that lines up. And told people to keep an eye on this horse because it had winning numbers from the horse that won the event last year, and this horse did take first place. So another riddle coded in gematria, synced up with the dates of the calendar, involving the Oval Office. And this is how we just called the Astros and Nationals to meet in the World Series, and for the Nationals to beat the Astros, and likely in Game 7, 138 days after Trump's birthday, because Donald Trump equals 138, Nationals equals 138, Dave Martinez 138. And that's exactly what happened. So again, you learn this knowledge, you pay attention. The media feeds you stuff that can truly be lucrative. Now here's a good one too. It's November 2nd, the same day as the horse race, Saturday, November 2nd, 2019. And this is a headline today. German city declares a Nazi emergency. And if you read the article, it's about Dresden, the refugee town in World War II. And today is the 102-year anniversary of the Balfour Declaration. The Balfour Declaration, here it's actually bigger to read it right here. But the date's November 2nd, 1917. Today's the 102-year anniversary. It's written, Dear Lord Rothschild, I have much pleasure in conveying to you on behalf of His Majesty's government the following declaration of sympathy with Jewish Zionist aspirations, which has been submitted to and approved by the Cabinet. His Majesty's government view with favor the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people, and will use their best endeavors to facilitate the achievement of this object. It being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine, which obviously wasn't lived up to, or the rights and political status enjoyed by Jews in any other country. I should be grateful if you would bring this declaration to the knowledge of the Zionist Federation. And in light of this being published on November 2nd, 11/2, like 112, Zionist is 112, Judaism's 112, Donald's 112, proud Zionists. Sheldon Adelson, one of his top contributors, if not his top contributor, Sheldon 112. Adelson's also 119, like Orthodox, like Star of David, like Ashkenazi Jews. Anyway, the Balfour Declaration, it is what persuaded the United States of America to go from supporting Germany in World War I to supporting Britain and being willing to fight against Germany. And when the U.S. did join the war, it was to fight against Germany. So on the 102-year anniversary, you get this story. And not by accident. Nazis in Dresden also has gematria overlap, probably the reason they picked that city. Because again, the people who use this practice, this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to put words together that have relationships and matching numerical values. So the German city of Dresden has declared a Nazi emergency after years of right-wing extremist racist activity in the city, a local councilor says. Dresden city councilors this week passed a resolution warning that the far right was growing in strength in the eastern German city. And, it just reminds of what's going on all over the world. All of these types of stories that are creating more and more legislation that ultimately is protective of Israel and Zionism. Just like how in the United States of America, the top issue for our elected officials was to pass legislation to keep people from boycotting Israel. And it reminds of recently the flooding in Houston. To get government relief, you had to sign a document that you wouldn't boycott Israel. Isn't that a strange thing to have to sign? You've just been flooded, and to get government relief, you have to sign a document that says you won't boycott Israel. I mean, who's even thinking about that after their home's been destroyed by a flood in severe weather? Let me see if my camera unfroze. Okay, looks like we're unfrozen. Also, they chose this interesting word to put in here, and sums to 47. If you follow my work, I have a What is 47 campaign. Today can also be written 2/11, like 211, the 47th prime. What they are signature numbers of Freemasonry and very important numbers in gematria. But this story has everything to do with the Balfour Declaration. No doubt about it. And the World Wars, of course. And it's interesting that this holiday they're bringing out a movie about World War I. They normally don't talk about World War One in the history books. I guess maybe now that you can't boycott Israel, they can bring out, the missing chapter of World War One from most U.S. history lessons. If you grew up in the United States and you're my age or older or even younger, you probably didn't learn about World War One hardly at all, other than it started with the assassination of Franz Ferdinand, which doesn't even make sense. But again, they don't teach you about it because that's when all the agreements were made for establishing Israel. And then they needed to create the narrative of World War II and a person going after the Jews to create an incentive for all the European Jews to move to Israel, this Jewish state that was part of a plot involving powerful families such as the Rothschilds. So, I think that they're slowly just putting all the truth out in front of people's faces, and not quite, but it's coming. This Greta Thunberg, remember, she got famous on September 23rd, giving her speech at the United Nations. She gave her angry speech. And we pointed out that from her birthday, which is January 3rd, to the date of her speech was 263 days, which is the 56th prime, and climate change is 56. So perfect day to speak about climate change. And her name, Greta Thunberg, has a lot in common with climate change as well. But anyway, she's back in the news today, and it's for getting support from Leonardo DiCaprio, who's put out a movie in the past decade on climate change himself. And he called her the leader of our time. But what's interesting is from the date of her speech to today, November 2nd, it's 40 days later. Thunberg's 40, and then today's 11/2. Mathematics is 40 and 112. And again, this whole thing of gematria and doing things by numerical patterns within words and dates in the calendar sequence, it's all math. It's all math. And remember, gematria, the practice of coding numbers into words, means geometry in language. And who has instruments of geometry for their symbols? The Freemasons with the capital G between the compass and square. And again, gematria comes from Kabbalah. Masonry is based in Kabbalah. When George Carlin said there's a great big club and you're not in it, he was talking about, these powerful secret societies that are Masonic. And this is what they do every single day. Roll out their propaganda by the numbers, everything carefully calculated and measured. And when you learn the code, you just see how repetitive things are. Like Carlos Beltran getting hired as the Mets manager and wearing a number 45 cap. Again, 45 is a special number. If you add 1 through 9 together, it equals 45. Like 9 innings in a baseball game. 9 representing completion, pregnancy, 9 months. Anyway, Major League's 45, Beltran's 45. And then this hiring is November 1st, 11/1, 111. Once upon a time in spring training, I said the Mets would be in the 111th World Series, and everyone made fun of me. But they talk about how once upon a time he signed a $119 million contract. Don't forget who these numbers are important to. Star of David, Orthodox, Ashkenazi Jews. WABC broke the news about the Beltran signing in New York. 77 WABC, Judaism 77, so is Zionist. And Beltran was born in 77. His full name, Carlos Ivan Beltran's 111, like New York 111. But if you thought that was a coincidence about the Judaism and stuff, here's the guy who helped break the news right here. Sid Rosenberg. Sid Rosenberg. Sources telling me Carlos Beltran is the new manager of the Mets. Done deal. Sid Rosenberg. And once again, he was on that $119 million contract. 77 WABC. Flight 77. 77 minutes, dancing Israelis. Anyway, Sid Rosenberg. Rosenberg's also 49, like Sid, like Scottish. If you watch if you have Netflix, there's that show on the Freemasons. Shows you inside the Scottish Rite Lodges, the Star of David's all over the place. Just to bring it all together. It's often been said that the Scottish Rite is the most Jewish branch of Freemasonry. Sid Rosenberg. 77, 119, 111. It's just like. And for every person who comes by and says this is stupid, each one of those person, they're the people who validate the Zionist attitude in the Talmud. The people like Adam Green and No More News, they're the type of people that validate it. It's funny that guy tries to expose Zionism, but he validates everything they do. So this headline's from Halloween. 15-year-old charged with shooting that left 7-year-old trick-or-treater in critical condition. 15-7, right? It's kind of like 157, the 37th prime. And remember the story we covered earlier, the Halloween shooting that was in the news? 4 people killed in Halloween party shooting. This shooting was in the town of Orinda on the 37th parallel. And on the radio show, I said, see if they'd give us some shootings this Halloween because they're trying to go after masks while also going after guns. So it seemed like it would fit this year in light of the narratives. A Halloween shooting, so you get a couple of shooting stories in the news. And again, they reported 4 killed and at least 4 injured, 4 and 4, shooting, kill, mask. The shooting just days prior in Long Beach, California, had a 44 encoded into it. 2 party shootings days apart, both in the state of California. Orinda, California, where it happened, equals 283, the 61st prime, and Halloween leaves 61 days left in the year. So anyway, you got that story on the 37th parallel. Then they come back and give you another one. They say a teen equals 44 like shooting. And again, they code the number 37 once again in the headline by putting 15 and 7 in it. And they said this happened in a place called Little Village, which equals 79 like murder. And they say the shooter wore a Jason mask. Jason, kill, trick or treat, they're all 59, so anyway, a lot of people wear Jason masks on Halloween, so you can't go too far with that one, but you see the encoding of the name. And just for people who are new here, you go through characters in movies, you start to see how the names were come up with. Notice Michael Myers is also 59, like kill, like Jason. And the 131, think about October 31st. 1031, Michael Myers, a character from Halloween. 193, that's the 44th prime number. So remember 193 is the 44th prime, and you see the 67 as well. Kill is 44, and killer is 67. And the other thing hold on. Notice kill with the alphabetic order and rules of numerology 17. Michael Myers. I'm just going to put that back up here. Michael Myers, that's his name. Michael Myers. 59, that's the 17th prime number. So okay, what else was in the news? The day the Nationals win the Rigged World Series, you get the death of a former Montreal Expo. Again, the Expos are the team that became the Nationals. And this man, Ron Fairley, his name equals 118, just like Montreal. Remember, George Herbert Walker Bush, 118. The whole season was synced up with him. Tributes to Skull and Bones all throughout the year. And Yeah, it's just like, and again, before Game 7, one of the stories was that Bregman's grandfather had died, and Bregman's birthday was March 30th, exactly 7 months before Game 7. They're talking to you about the death of his grandfather. He was one of the heroes for the Astros in the World Series. And also had a crucial mistake. Guess you could say he was one of the central characters. So it's the same stuff year after year, you know. What are the odds that a former Montreal Expo dies the day of Game 7? Beto O'Rourke, he just ended his campaign, and notice his campaign began March 13th, like 13/3, like 133, President, White House, government. From that day to the day he ended it was 233 days later, which is the 51st prime. Federal's 51, and he ended it on a date with 51 numerology as well. His federal campaign ends perfectly by the numbers, showing that that's exactly what it was planned for, you know. Beto O'Rourke became part of the political theater, making some big statements about gun control, and he got to get more TV recognition and fame than most people who've actually, you know, served in the federal office. So, anyway, everyone does their campaigns like this. Donald Trump's campaign was perfectly by the numbers, as we talked about when he was running. They all do it, you know. It's not just Beto. It's every contestant. And then, of course, Donald Trump to host the World Series at 1:15 p.m. for the Washington Nationals, who just won the 115th World Series. They're doing it Monday, November 4th, the day leaving 57 days left in the year. That's the number that allowed us to call the Nationals to beat the Astros, because we saw that if the Astros lost 4 more games, they'd have 57 losses in the postseason all time. World Series is 57, Scottish Rights 57, Nationals is 57. We had Vanderbilt to win the College World Series earlier this year because the manager was 57 years old. They picked up their 57th win in the College World Series. Also, you had the death of Anderson Cooper's mother of Vanderbilt right at that same time, which was weird. But, again, that's what I'm talking about. Just like Vanderbilt wins College World Series, Vanderbilt dies. Both in the headlines at the same time. And the Astros, their postseason record right now is 49-57. Hold on here. Houston Astros, there they are. 49-57 in the postseason right now. Perfect, because they were just defeated by the Washington Nationals, and Washington's 49 and Nationals is 57. So. And what else is funny is the day they won it, the day they won the World Series, October 30th, 6-2 on the day leaving 62 days left in the year, where Eric Cooper equals 62, the umpire who died right before the World Series began. His full name equaled 105, like how Nationals also equals 105, like how they got 105 wins for the season by winning it. But from the day that they won the World Series, October 30th, to George Washington's upcoming birthday, February 22nd, is 115 days. And I can just show you real quick. So Game 7 was October 30th. And George Washington's birthday is February 22nd. Check it out. 115 days. 115th World Series. So. Anyway. That's all she wrote. We'll leave it there, Truth Seeker. Be back sooner than later. And thanks, Martin. I appreciate you doing that, man. So. Dr. Savage, I guess he's got a great decode on the Breeders' Cup, so check that out. Cool. Way to help spread the work, man. Keep it up. But we'll leave it there. Appreciate all of you. Until next time.